We're ready to go.
Super. So if you don't know, everybody, this is being recorded. I hope this will not prohibit any participation because we would like to have some dialogue today. It'll be posted on the CSPA website, and there will be a link to that. I think it's on your YouTube channel. Is that correct, Michelle?
That is correct.
Yeah. And we'll have a link to that on the Facebook page for the Vertical North. So welcome, bienvenue. Thank you very much for joining us. We do have a lot to cover here. So a couple of rules of engagement. I think Michelle mentioned it earlier. If you have a question, find the little button for you to raise your hand. Michelle will see that. She'll interrupt me, and you guys get to unmute, say who you are, where you're from, and then ask your question. If you think maybe it's a question that doesn't need to be answered right away, by all means, post it into the chat, and then we'll get to that in the end when we have some Q&As. So again, welcome. I will focus on one language instead of two, so that this doesn't take 3 hours. However, if anybody would like to ask a question in French, s'il vous plaît, demandez vos questions. Si vous n'êtes pas confortable de le dire en anglais, on va vous répondre en français. Mais autrement, on va continuer en anglais pour tout le monde, pour pas prendre trop de temps. So here we go. Building towards 2022 Canadian record. These are the best practices. These best practices have evolved within the years. Andrew and I started tweaking this document years ago. And then with the different coaches we've been working with ever since, we've been updating and trying to make it as current as possible with regards to well, best practices as a whole. Let's see if this works. Next page, not a good start. There we go. So the team, I think you all know Andrew, Mike, and JC. Troy is the newcomer on board, and I'm the guy in red and white. So about this document, it's a little daunting at first. Like I said, it took us a few years to keep updating, and there's a lot of detail here. But that's Bigways. Bigways are a discipline of their own, and they're built on a mountain of details. Our goal here is to elevate Bigway IQ so that if you have the right kind of information in your minds, there's a better opportunity for you guys to succeed when you're in the sky trying to perform. There's no expectation to memorize or to know it all. Experience comes from actually jumping and participating in camps. However, the documentation is a good fundamental to have in order for you to, aim for your goals, one of which we hope will be a participant on our next Canadian record. But this is the body of knowledge. It's a good balance in real life to have book smart and street smart, and book smart doesn't hurt. Why do we train? If you read the slide, at our last record, we had a week's worth of jumps planned ahead of us. We did 2 years of training camps. And when the event actually came, we had 4 or 5 days in a row of rain coming after the first day. So basically, we weren't going to have an opportunity to build for more than 1 day. So in 1 day, we had to make cuts. We only got to do 4 actual jumps. I think one of those jumps during the day was a complete failure. We all had to land. These are records. Records are unpredictable. They're never easy. And there are many, many factors around having to getting the opportunity to succeed. So you got to stack the odds in your favor, stack the deck. That's why we train. It took us only 4 jumps. You never know when you might underperform. So if you do a lot of training, there's a better opportunity, a better chance that you will perform well and that you won't get cut and that you would be on that one jump where we might actually successfully achieve a record. That's why we train. I think if you speak to most people who go to the world record, they go to all the camps. I know a lot of individuals who will get their invite at the first camp and stay signed up and attend for all the other camps, because being current is extremely important. Bigways are bigways. They're tough. So who knows what the next record is going to look like? This may or may not be the formation. We may or may not be giving away some secrets today, but we don't know. How many days are we going to have to actually perform, to actually try to get a record? How many jumps will it take? How many cuts are we going to have to make? It is in your best interest, if this is a goal, is to be on the next record, for you to train as much as you can. I'm not going to read a lot of slides today. I think all of us are going to want to speak to the slides, but not read. But this is one that I'd like to read because it's important. It's not the critic that counts. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena. The one who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm and devotion, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he or she fails, at least fails while daring greatly. This means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you. I think skydivers can resonate with what this says. And I mean, for the next record, it's up to you. I guess you have to make a decision. You know, do you want to be in the arena or not? And this is novice or experienced. I think it's important for you to make a decision, each and every one of you. If being on the record is something you want to do, this has to be your goal. You got to get in the arena. You got to give yourself to the process. There are no guarantees except for one: you will grow. I don't care how many jumps you have, how many years of experience you may have. And again, this applies to everyone. Participating in the training process, learning more, developing your Bigway skills will make you a better free flyer, period. Sticking around, that's up to you. That's dedication. And more so than that, it's also attitude. It's not easy. You're going to fail. We're going to point out the mistakes you make. We're going to point out the things that you do well. But in the end, if you stick to it, you're going to come out of it a much better free flyer. And I think a lot of people who've attended Vertical North camps and gone on to even bigger and better things will tell you that this process works. You just got to give yourself to it. Okay, I'm going to hand it off. Enough talking for now. I'll give this to JC and let's get into the best practices, starting with the dirt dive.
All right. You guys can hear me good?
Yes.
Perfect. So, well, to me, dirt diving is probably the most important part of the whole thing, of the whole skydive thing. You can be the best skydiver out there. You can do everything right. If you don't show up to the dirt dive, if you don't pay attention at the dirt dive, it's not going to work. The skydive is not going to be successful. And when I teach someone how to fly on their head in the tunnel, I tell them that the base of their position is their head. If the head is not in a good position, even if your legs are in a good position, it's still not going to work. And I really feel like it's the same for dirt diving. You need to be focused and you need to pay attention at the dirt dive to make this skydive a success. So you need to be on time, because first it's going to make everything more efficient, but it's also going to show respect to the rest of the team. If you show up 10 minutes late to the dirt dive, well, we're going to have 10 minutes less to dirt dive, and maybe that some people on the team really needed that extra time. So it's really to make it efficient and to pay respect to everyone there. So you need to have your gear on if it's requested. So your suit, your gear, your helmet, everything, so we can really have a good image of what is going to happen in the sky later on. And as we're doing the dirt dive, you want to make everything as realistic as possible. So you want to put yourself in the same mindset that you would be on the real jump, which means that you want to be focused, you want to be serious. If you're just fooling around on the mock-up, well, you know for sure that 30 minutes later, when you'll be in the plane, you're not going to be fooling around, you're going to be focused. So you want to translate that to the dirt dive as well. So you want to make it as realistic as possible. Well, then we go through all the steps of the jump. So a realistic approach, a good climb out, a good red zone. You want to really go through all the steps and make it as real as possible, up to the break off and the tracking partners and all that jazz. You want to take some good reference points for your jump as you're dirt diving. So you want to spot individuals, you want to spot rigs, helmets, and all that stuff. I personally don't like to get too many details in my head, because sometimes it gets a little bit too much. So I usually go up to three good point of reference that I'm going to try to keep for the actual jump. So what I like to do is get one in the base. So most of the time I'm going to know where Al is because of his suit. So that's going to be my first point of reference. Then I'm going to try to get a second one to confirm that I'm in a good quadrant. So whoever has a shiny suit is going to be my second point of reference. And the last one is going to be super precise, really close to my slot to make sure that I'm going obviously at the good spots. Some people maybe like to have a little more than three. I personally feel like three is the best. If I get to 5 and 6 different little point of reference, it gets confusing, and sometimes it defeats the purpose. Questions are always good, and briefing, just like it is right now. If you guys have questions, make sure to ask them. Make sure to ask them in front of everyone. Sometimes if you have a question, well, it probably means that someone else has the same question. So make sure that you ask the questions when you have some, because again, 30 minutes later, when you'll be in the plane, if there's still something that are unanswered, well, it's going to be a little bit too late to get your answer at that point. You want to talk to your teammate. You want to figure out all the small details as we're briefing. So feet placement in the door, grip presentation, all that stuff. You want to discuss that with your plane, with your close team. And once we're done with the briefing, well, a dirt dive cannot be 100% realistic. So it's a good thing afterwards to spend some time sitting down, probably on your own, being relaxed, and visualizing the jump. Most of the time, if you're really good at doing that, your imagination can recreate a really close to perfect image of what the jump will look like. So with all the information that you gather during the briefing and the dirt dive, you can really create even a better replica of the jump in your head afterwards. I think that sums it up. Al? I don't know if there was anything else to add. I think the next part is probably Mike.
Yeah, you're on mute if you're talking now. If not, I'll continue.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Am I on the? I can't see the title of the slide because of all the Zoom stuff. So let me know.
So the next part is boarding, and I think it's Mike.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, JC. And a big focus of what you're really touching on there is about mental preparation and just kind of going over the jump. And I think that's a theme that all of you will see over and over and over again. I don't have a ton of competition experience, but I got a bit. I know you got a lot more than me, JC, but the biggest thing that I found that helped anytime I've been in competition, whether that's skydiving or something else, is really just that mental preparation. You really need to think of like this whole skydive as you would your emergency procedures. Things just need to be automatic and happen as a reflex. And that ties into every one of these processes. And that's one thing you'll see happen over and over again. So something like boarding, that's pretty typical. You probably think, hey, there's not too much to it. I do it every time I get on a jump. But whether you execute these steps thoughtfully or not can really affect your entire skydive. So, taking that time, typical things like confirming your break off, landing direction, your ditters all set up. You really want to take care of that stuff before you get on the plane. I'm sure 99% of us at some point have gotten on a plane and forgotten altimeter, didn't know what the landing direction was or what your break off was going to be, and had to kind of ask those questions on the plane. And on a fun jump, maybe that's not a huge deal, but on a record jump, you really don't want to break the mindset and kind of interfere with people's routines when you're on the plane. So you need to have all those things taken care of before getting on. And then safety-wise, of course, checking your gear over and over and over again. It's very rare you're going to be in a plane that's not packed like a can of sardines. So do those gear checks over and over and over again before you get on. Make sure you have everything you need. You have your O2 line. There's going to be a few things that you're not used to from a regular skydive. So making that a routine, even in these training jumps, this year or next year leading up to the record is going to make you successful or not with some of that planning. Whereas if you haven't made a routine come the record, those little things can really throw you off. You want to be able to focus on the jump and not, oh, I forgot my oxygen line or I forgot a piece of equipment. So really focusing on those things before you even get on the plane. Things like lining up and proper exit order. So you really need to pay attention sort of while you're on those dirt dives and know exactly, like JC said, who's in front of you, who's in front of them. What is that exit order? That should be automatic for you when you get to the loading area. I've only been part of a couple world record camps, and during those camps, they straight up tell you if you do so much as get into the plane in the wrong slot, there's a good chance you're going to get cut from that camp or probably not get an invite. So something as small as that, it seems insignificant, but it really throws everyone else off. So just even knowing your spot when you get to that boarding area, if you have to, you go talk to your plane captain if something's not clear. But for the most part, 90% of the time, you should be already in that spot without even having to kind of ask where you're going. Typical stuff, seatbelts on, helmets on. Some people have different philosophies about these things, but with a record, you can expect it to follow kind of the standard safety protocols. So if you take your helmet off, make sure it's secured. We're flying in different situations here where you've got planes wingtip to wingtip. There could be a case where you need to make some kind of emergency exit. You want to have your gear all secured and ready to go, not loose leg straps and things like that. And I think the biggest point, the last bullet there, be calm, visualize, focus, and breathe. So take that time to breathe in the plane. Yeah, that's a good visual, Al. Don't be rushing to the bathroom last minute. Don't be that guy. And it definitely happens, but take that time to focus and really go over the jump. Yeah. So once we're in the plane, don't be loud and distracting. So it's pretty typical. You want to chat, talk to your friends and stuff like that. On these jumps, it's really important for people to be able to focus and kind of go over that mental preparation. We've got a pretty long climb to altitude. Depending on the type of record, it could be 40 minutes, even an hour sometimes. And that might seem like, hey, you got all the time in the world, but really you need to take that time if you want to be successful and practice that jump over and over and over again. So for myself, I try and take as much time as I can, just kind of get my heart rate down, breathe, relax. And then I'm just the whole time just visualizing different scenarios. So, what does a good jump look like from the second that green light comes on? Who's in front of me in the plane? Who's behind me? Who's going out the door? And are they going out just before me, just after me? Every one of those steps should be very clear in your mind and not something you're figuring out as you go. And I like to, JC touched on, I only have like 1, 2, maybe 3 points of reference, which is a really good point. But you also want to have a couple different scenarios maybe. So what does a good jump look like? Okay, when I leave the plane, I expect I'm going to turn my head 45 degrees and I'm going to see the base right there. But what happens if that base got out before or after us? What does that visual look like? And then what do I need to do to adjust for that scenario? Because it's likely that's going to happen. Or what if the base gets out and I've got a point of reference? Sometimes we use streamers. So you've got a black and a white streamer. What if those are reversed or turned 90 degrees? You don't want to be surprised by those kinds of things. So that 45-minute climb actually isn't a lot of time for you to go over these different scenarios and be kind of prepared for them. So really, if you're talking to your friends saying, hey, is my GoPro on? I'm not saying don't chat at all, but you really need to spend the majority of that time in the plane focusing and letting other people focus. Everyone has different needs. You'll see some people, maybe they want to play a game just on their phone to kind of relax and get into the mindset, but some people really need to kind of visualize and spend that time focusing. So try not to distract other people while you guys are on the jump run. And one positive voice. So really focus on that. I'm going to kill it. Don't focus on the negatives, but you're looking for contingencies as well, and kind of thinking about those as ready. Being ready for oxygen supply. That's something that's kind of new to some people, and it's important to do that properly too. So you'll see some people kind of holding the oxygen line out in front of their mouth. The important part is you're getting kind of a pressurized flow. So making sure it's properly in your mouth, you're getting good oxygenation. If you're talking on the whole flight, you're gonna have a lower oxygen level. So take that time, relax, be prepared, and just focus in the mindset, ready to go at any minute. green light. So calmly stow your oxygen line and stop thinking about it. I think in any kind of sport, when you see high performance athletes, they always have kind of this get in the zone technique or mindset. Where that means, hey, okay, let's kill this. The green light's on. I'm ready to go. Whatever your cue is, have be ready to get into that mindset and have something that kind of gets you in that mindset. The second that green light comes on, you might have 20 seconds to get to the door, and you might have 5 seconds, and that will change on every jump. It's really hard to time all those planes accurately. So when that green light comes on, you need to be ready to get out of that plane in 2-3 seconds if you have to, but in a calm, calculated manner. So you're not bumping, pushing your way through. Everyone has to work together as a team. It's not just like a zoo dive where everyone's pushing their way out of the plane. Everyone really needs to work as a team from the second you're lining up in the door till you're actually getting out of the plane. And again, breathe. And awesome. I'll pass it back to you there, Al. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Maybe Michelle, you want to let me know if you see any questions out there. It's a good time for us to pause maybe and see if there are any questions to start stimulating some dialogue.
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. All right. Well, feel free, folks. We'll keep going, but by all means, don't be shy. So let's talk about exits. It doesn't matter what type of exit you're doing or what type of aircraft you're exiting. Getting out quickly, it's a no-brainer, and efficiently if at all possible. So we practice that a lot in the camps. We want minimal gaps between jumpers. So for example, on a tailgate plane, if you're a floater, a couple of lines in front of the base, or if you're a diver, a couple of lines behind the base. We highly recommend making sure, and even in an otter, you know, if you're part of the diving group that's inside the aircraft, not outside to float, keep your hands on your partners. There's no pushing, of course, but taking small steps and shuffling and making sure that that arm doesn't extend fully away from you, that you're keeping your hand on the back of the person on their rig. This will make sure that there's no gaps. Major gaps are going to slow down the building process, and there's only a finite amount of time that we have to build these formations, and it starts from the exit. You don't want to put yourself behind on the clock. Tailgate, I'm going to get back to the video for tailgates, but in a nutshell, the goal here, a lot of people see the edge of a door, either a side door or a tailgate, and they feel that that's where their foot needs to go to launch off an aircraft, and that's utterly false. What we want is when you're crossing that door sky threshold to already be in a launched transitional position, so that as soon as you hit the relative wind, you're that much more efficient at being head down in the relative wind. So launching before you get to that door edge and then crossing into the sky as you're transitioning to be head down. Knees bent on a side door typically, but also on a tailgate. I'm going to show you guys right now a video. Hopefully the lag won't be too much. Let's see if I can click on this sucker. Michelle, if you can let me know you can see this.
You're good. It's a wonderful ad, but you'll want a full screen.
Yes. I'm skipping ads, and here we go. There we go. So this is a video from a good friend, TJ. He's been at a couple world records. We're lined up here in a tailgate. I'm going to let you view the video. You'll see a whole bunch of different exits, and then we'll come back and dissect just a little bit. And if there are any questions, let us know. There you can see the transition. It's basically a cartwheel, knees bent, getting small, and then once you're in the air, you punch it. Now there is one different type of exit being done here, which we'll come back to, that I find super interesting, and I'd love to try the next time I get an opportunity to do this, but I find it also very efficient. Watch a couple of diving approaches here. And there's no secret sauce here. You have to practice these dives over and over again so you get a good sense and a good feel as to when you should start opening up to slow down as you're closing both a vertical and a horizontal gap in order to come dock, be on level, and succeed, right? You know, the do's and don'ts, clearly you never dive above the formation or above people, you dive to the side of the formation. You have to get on level as you're entering the red zone. We're going to talk about that in a second. But let's focus on the exits here. Just going to take us to the 2-minute mark. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So here's another exit. If you look at the center of the screen, knees bent, very small until you get into the relative wind, and then you punch it head down. So everybody except for the person in the gray suit that we see their back of the rig is doing a cartwheel. However, this person exited the aircraft basically in a floating position. So running out the door, getting into the relative wind, and then a little turn, head down towards the formation. Super efficient. We're not going to tell you which way to go. Both work, but we highly recommend that you practice these in our camps. Now, if you take a look at this person in gray exiting, it's a very small, quick scene, but it's pretty cool. Turn, down you go. I think that's pretty cool. All right, close this. If there are any questions, Michelle, let me know. Otherwise, I will keep going. So side door. Let's change. Thanks, Mike, for these pictures. So in a sequence here, again, the goal is to get out of the aircraft as quickly as possible. And that means making sure that not only are you closing the gap with the person in front of you, but you're also making sure that the person behind you can get out there quickly too. So taking big steps is going to make it very difficult for people to follow you. You're going to want to shuffle your feet. And when you get to that side door aircraft, there's no time for you to position yourself perfectly at the door. When you're first learning how to exit an aircraft head down, you will what we call turn the corner, where you're going to make sure that your head is pointing towards the pilot, and then you're transitioning outside the aircraft into basically a two-way with the aircraft, where you're horizontally the same kind of orientation as the aircraft. There's no time to do that in Bigways. We need you to get the hell out of that airplane as quickly as possible. Hence, you see the arrow pointing on a 45-degree angle towards the tail. As you're getting out, you get small, bend your knees, and do that transition, as you can see these individuals doing here, where they have their back to the air, they're transitioning, and then it continues into a dive, as you can see in the upper left corner over here. And diving is noodling. We call it noodling because you're like a noodle. If your hands aren't against your hips and your feet aren't touching, you're not diving, and you're going too slow. So you got to dive and dive hard. Make sure there are no questions.
Al, we have one question from Fabian.
Yes.
Camp single plane, multi-plane camps, and will the planes be similar to the ones used in the record?
Aircraft are TBD for 2022. Ultimately, our goal would be to have Skyvan in the lead for a tailgate, trail planes with otters, and potentially that fourth plane, either another Skyvan full of floaters or another side to aircraft. It'll depend on availability and cost. Cost is very high. Any other questions?
That's it
Maybe
for
just
now.
add to that. I don't know if I heard the question right, Michelle, but I think for the actual camps, we will have an opportunity to jump from some of those similar plane types. So
Yes.
we expect to see for sure Skyvans this year, and I believe an Otter or two. Rather, they'll be the same time route as another question, but even if we're looking at a Skyvan and a Caravan combo or something like that with a smaller door, that's still going to be great practice. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Mike. All right, carrying on. Floaters, side door. There's a prop blast. We need you guys to be efficient and strong on climb out. The amount of time that it takes for the team to get outside of the aircraft so everybody inside can line up is very important. Again, this is why we practice in our dirt dives. Making sure we understand where hands and feet go on a side door aircraft is very important. If you want to piss off your organizer and your team, don't figure it out on the ground and take too much time to do it on jump run. It's a perfect way to do it. Secure your visual cue. Typically on a float plane, now some of the videos we're going to show you here, there's two ways of doing it. If it's only 3 aircraft and you can see the lead aircraft, you can look there, wait for your visual cue, or everybody looks at the person who's on the camera step, and then we get off in sequence. And that's something we're going to go over in the camps to prepare for the record. Tailgate, line up efficiently, but you're still in the aircraft, you're standing up. You're getting ready for the green light so that you can drop oxygen, and then wait for the exit count that you can hear the base coming out. Small steps, shuffle feet, smart gaps, touching your teammates, all the good stuff we've talked about before. Ultimately, you know, you got to get out quick and get into a floating position that pretty much looks the same. Depending on how close you are to the base or the formation, that's another story. Here you see, this is Swanee coming out on the 2012, coming out of the Sherpa. For the record, he is the first floater out, and he's got a long way to go, because after he gets out, the far back plane full of floaters is going to empty, and everybody else is still in the aircraft waiting. So he's a very, very super long super floater. But that body position you see in the picture number 3 here, where he's parallel, horizontal, his goal here is to slow down his vertical descent, his fall rate, and accelerate his horizontal speed in order to close the gap horizontally. Airplanes are still moving forward. He needs to drive forward and minimize the amount of falling time he's going to have before he can be vertical with the formation. If you are closer, if you are exiting close to the base, this isn't the position you need to assume right away. You can almost, we're going to show you some videos, you can almost go straight vertical. Again, depending on where you're located, the distance you will be from the formation once you've exited the aircraft will dictate at which point your angle of attack is going to pitch, right? You're far away, you're staying horizontal. As you get closer to the formation, you are going to get more vertical, and then you're going to open up. So I hope this makes sense a little bit in your mind. See if we can get some videos to show you guys. Base. Done a bit of this. Timing and teamwork. Launching is extremely important. So practicing, if you've ever been on a base jump with us, we're going to practice on the ground over and over again. What the visual and the audible cue is, where hands are, grips, and making sure that we get off that aircraft together as one team. Yeah, initially the grips have to be firm. You have to sometimes muscle your way to be on head level with the rest of your base team. But as soon as you're in the air, you got to fly your body. And if you're going to only hold on for dear life and not fly your body, you're going to disrupt the flying that your partners are trying to do, and potentially delay the handoff, right? So if we have a high-low grip, you're holding on to someone's rig on the shoulder, you've got their hip rings on the other hand. You're using that for everyone to stay on head level, but after you're out in the air, you got to let things loose, stay vertical, slide down, and do that opening up of the base. As you're opening up the base, you got to stay vertical. Very important to practice this. Often this is when people end up going a little sideways, trying to reach for, you can practice this on the ground. It's not that hard to do, but if you haven't practiced it, there's a good chance you won't do well in the sky. If you're taking air on your back in the base, which is a typical issue that we've seen a lot in the past until you've done base, you know, you got to make sure you are vertical. Often we'll preach having just a little bit of backward outside pressure, so you're a little bit stronger to present and able to fight off some of that potential push you're going to get from first stingers or some of the noise that happens in the formation behind you.
We have a question.
All right, shoot.
This is from Josh. The base looks pretty big. I'm wondering what kind of outward pressure is expected on those grips. Have you been in situations where it's almost too hard to hold on your partner's wrists in the base, and has a base blown apart by lost grips?
Yes, yes, and yes. So yes, bases can blow up. Absolutely, if there's too much tension on the base, if there's too much tension within the base. So again, if you are in the base and your body is angled forward, you are definitely creating a lot of tension with your base partner, and you're also prone to any kind of input you might get from a first stinger. So if you're leaning forward, your legs are potentially behind you a little too far. You might be getting leg burbles, which is going to make your job very difficult. And if you are leaning forward and someone comes here and docks just a little bit hard, now you really need to have some strong forward leg. Now you're affecting your vertical fall rate. So we're not going to get into too much of the details today, but to answer your question, very important to be vertical before people get on, before the first stingers get on. Very important for you to have strong feet. We're going to get into formation flying in a moment. And very important for you to not be creating any tension by going forwards or too far backwards. You got to be vertical. What kind of tension can we expect in the next base? It's a very interesting question because the next base has never been done before. We haven't decided that's going to be the base. It does look big because it's the biggest base I think has ever been done. I've been talking to a lot of interesting individuals in the States with regards to the next world record and trying different things. Who knows? Maybe a 14-way base can or can't work. What kind of pressure can we expect? I don't think the pressure would be any different. If your first stingers are doing their job properly, you will get the same kind of pressure that you would get on a 6-way base, 10-way base, 14-way base. If they're doing their job, you don't have that much pressure. It makes your life a lot easier. I'm going to click on the video here to give you guys an idea what a good base exit looks like. Turn on the draw function. Michelle, let me know if you can see this.
You're good to go.
Thank you. All right, let's forward this up to an actual exit. Boom. All right, let's walk it through once. Nice little pancake. Out it goes. Feet stay vertical, do the handoff, open it up nice and slow, then you got to lock it in. Again, if you don't lock it in before people get on, before the first stingers get on, you're in trouble. Now you're fighting to try to get back on level and to get your airspace properly separated between your partners. And presenting, adding more presentation is very difficult to do once people are building on. I'm going to bring it back a little bit here and highlight a few things. So typically we practice this, well, we do practice this a lot on the ground. It's the communication between the 6 of us where we're basically face to face, flat on. The people backing up have to see where that door edge is. They hop up, we get underneath, and out we go. The goal here is to have your hips in, not having your back overly bent forward, right? That means your legs end up out here. If your legs are out here, you're getting wind and you're making the base turn. Open that up a little bit more. This is the part where it's a little high on the screen here, but we're kind of letting go our hands from the shoulder, sliding down the arm, opening it up. It's a move you got to learn to do and stay vertical. And then lock it in. If you look at the feet, after a while, you'll see that everybody in this base locks in, activates their feet. Once we sort things out, is my draw function available here? Yes, it is. So I'll pick on myself. The goal here is for feet to stay activated. Noisy legs in the base makes a noisy formation. And as we'll talk soon with regards to overall formation build, every pod is a base. So there's no reason why the fundamentals shouldn't apply throughout the whole formation. All right, enough of base for now. For divers, vision is very important. I've been silly enough in the past to wear an open face with only some shades on and try to dive after things, and my eyes were all watery and stuff. It wasn't smart. It was dangerous. Don't do that. If you don't have a full face, make sure you're wearing goggles and they're tight. Noodle, noodle, noodle. If your hands aren't on your hips and your feet aren't together, you're not diving. Follow the person you're supposed to be docking on. This may not always be the case. Depending on where you are in a formation, you might not have to follow anyone, but you should understand what the points of reference would be once you're entering the red zone to find the person you need to be docking on. Getting there ahead of them isn't going to help the formation. If you don't see them, you get as close to your slot as possible, giving enough room for someone to get into their slot as well, and be ready to dock. You must position yourself, even if someone gets lost on their skydive, you must position yourself as close as possible to your slot in order for you to succeed once that other person gets in. So we talked about it in the dirt dive, you know, key visual reference points. Know yourself well enough to understand what's going to make sure you find your slot. If it's 3 reference points or 5, do what you know will work for you. Never dive above the formation, dive to the side, and be on level when you get to the red zone. We're going to talk about the red zone in a second. There's going to be a video for docking soon. But being on level when you enter the red zone is critical. And the biggest mistake most people do is having their chin up as they're diving. They're diving with their chin up or floating sometimes, chin up. And then they get into the red zone, their chin stays up. Their reference points to be on level is false. Bring that chin down, be vertical, and you'll have your right reference points. Floating, again, follow the person you'll be docking on if it's the way it's been designed. Otherwise, get to your slot as quickly as possible using your key reference points. I'm going to click on a video here that shows you a really good job on floating. From the view, it's like from the view of the camera of the person wearing it. It's really cool. You'll see how, I think it's JC actually, stays below the base the entire time, which is where we want floaters to be. Floating is interesting. Again, it's something you need to practice. Angle of attack is something you need to play with and practice often. Understanding if you're trying to get from 100, you know, horizontal distance and vertical distance as well, but trying to close the gap on both axes and catch up to something that's doing 174 miles an hour straight down the pipe. There's no perfection expected here, but there are certain fundamentals you must adhere to. One of which is if you're a floater, you should always be in the hemisphere below the formation. Floating up past that and ending up in the diver's airspace is called fliving. It's something that's unacceptable. You can't do that. It's dangerous. It's highly inefficient. So staying below and understanding when it is you need to get vertical to match the speed of the base and the formation. And you know, trying to aim what that's going to look like when you get there. So we refer here, as you can read, to a hockey pass or a soccer pass, where essentially we never kick a soccer ball to someone who's running full flight. We kick it in front of them so that the ball gets there when they get there. I'll show you the video. Good time for questions too.
So this is a bad video, like a flyver video, or a good float?
We've got both here, and we'll highlight both. So again, if you put yourself in the perspective of the person with the camera on their head, the base is here. Okay. I'll run it once and then back it up. Always, always, always below the base. So there's a certain point in time here where it turns from float to vertical. And quite often what that means is, although you are in a floater position, a floater slot, I should say, you will end up putting yourself in a very aggressive vertical position to match the speed of the base initially and make sure that you're staying below the base. So I'll show you a bad example first. And I apologize, whoever I'm highlighting here. I don't know who it is, just using you as an example. So yellow guy here, keep your eyes on the yellow guy. Big brakes, so ended up, okay, I'm getting close. I need to slow down my horizontal speed and vertical speed. So got really big with the legs, really big with the arms, but forgot a little bit that the base is still going at 174 miles an hour. Whoops, boom. Now we're down here. Huge gap and diving on top of people. So you'll see at one point there'll be a leg movement here to back up and get back on level. Nice move. Just don't go there in the first place. Right? We're back on level.
If you go back also, if you want to see another good flyver example, if you go back, I think around 32 or 33 seconds, bottom left corner, it's really quick. So you might have to slow it down, but you see someone passing like quite fast, which is a little bit
sketch.
A little bit scary for sure.
Yeah, okay, over here. Yeah. Yeah. So let me show you guys quickly what it is you can do to prevent that from happening. And I know this is what the camera flyer did, but I'll show you on the right side here. And it's a little subtle, but it's important to understand, right? Again, the base is here. Your goal as a floater is to close the horizontal distance, but also match the vertical speed. So where's this base going to be when I've closed the horizontal distance and stayed underneath and on level, right? So it's somewhere around here. I'm going to highlight, I think this is Martin Lemay. So he kind of knows what he's doing. And I'm being silly because he really does. Keep your eyes here on Martin. There'll be a point where he's going to think, okay, I need to slow down and open up. And he does right here. Oops, can't pause, but you saw him open up his legs. And then now what you're going to see, he's going to go into a bit of a diver position. Where's my marker? And go into a bit of a noodle because he realizes that base is still going hard and he wants to stay below. Whoop, boom, and then he stays there and then comes in on level. So it's a little bit subtle, but it's basically, with a lot of practice, you're going to figure it out, how you're closing horizontal distance, getting into a vertical body position, and then knowing when to open up. And if you gauge your speed a little bit wrong, you went a little too big on opening up, you get back into a bit of a diving position to stay below the base, reopen again, and then get your straight line into the red zone. Any questions? Cool. All right. Again, is this, I can't see the top of the slide here. Am I talking too much, guys? Should I be handing this off?
Yeah, I think that's my part.
Super.
All right, so the red zone is pretty much when you're right there. It's your final approach. It's like, we don't really need to put a number on it, but it's roughly 15 feet away from your dock. Everything that you need to do before docking should be done when you're getting in the red zone. So basically you're in your quadrant, you're on level, you're in line with your dock. Your legs are in the position that you want them to be as you're docking. Everything is there. You just need to go forward and then eventually take your dock. When you're in the red zone, if let's say you're getting out of the plane close to the base and you see that the base has turned a little bit, you want to try to resist as much as you can to carve and follow the base. The base is supposed to go back into his line. So wait, be patient. And if you do need to carve a little bit, Make sure that you're not being blind as you're carving. Make sure that you're looking to wherever you're going, because if you have to carve a little bit to get to your slot, chances are other people are going to need to carve as well. Two people carving together could be a little bit dangerous at some point. You can go to the next slide, Al. Yeah, so docking, once you're in the red zone, you're ready to dock. So one of the first things that I said way earlier is that to me, the most important part was the dirt dive, but I think that the least important part is probably docking. Obviously it's the goal, but if you do everything right around docking, if you prepare your jump properly, if you fly properly to your slot, if you fly good, if you enter the red zone the proper way, everything's going to be so set up perfectly for you to dock that the actual dock is not going to be a problem at all. On a Bigway formation, it's everyone takes underhand grips except for the first stinger. That setup is the way that it's going to be the most comfortable for everyone, and that's going to allow better presentation for whoever's docking behind you. You guys have all heard the classic LSD thing, so level, slot, duck. We're just going to make it a little more, we're just going to add a couple little steps. So obviously before ducking, you want to be on level. You want to go forward to your slot. Then you need to stop every movement. That's really important before docking, before getting on the formation. You should not be moving. You should be relaxed. You should be breathing. You want to take that phantom duck. So you basically want to get your end ready to dock. You want to get your other arm ready to present behind with a closed fist. Your body should be in the proper position. Everything should be there. The only thing the last thing that you need to do is just put your hand down on the flyer in front of you so to actually dock. So level, slot, you stop movement, you take that phantom dock, and then you dock. As I was saying, our goal is obviously to dock. So sometimes we feel that once we're dock, our job is done, but it's really the opposite. Getting to your dock, you have to fly your body, which you should be natural and comfortable with at that point. Now that you're dock, you're sharing the control with everyone else. We're basically trying to fly that big ass formation, and we are all steering the same ship. So it's much harder once you're docked on the formation. So basically that means that once you're docked, you need to keep flying. The job is not done. The job really just started. I think we had 1 or 2 videos for that, Al.
Stand by here. All right, buddy, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, that seems good. I think that's the one I was looking for, yeah.
All right, here we go.
So on this video, we should see 2 really good flyers, which is Troy and Ben Lemay. And you can see if you can pause. So now they're in the red zone. Everything is like their legs, they're in Daffy, they're on level, they just need to go forward. And the main thing that I want you guys to look at is how patient they are before taking their dock. They're both right there. They're both superstar flyer. Like they could just come in and take that dock super smooth, but they really take the time. They pause, and then they go. And everyone should do that. Everyone should take at least as much time as that to take their dock.
Yeah, and if I can highlight Ben's position here, which is really cool, right? The goal here on a first stinger is your head's looking inside. He's on level, looking inside across the formation, but his entire body is facing the pod. He's trying to create a round. A pod has to be as round as a base, right? So his arms are to his sides and his feet are completely, his legs are in their own lane. There's zero cross traffic now under the grip or with the legs of the people in front of him. So it's a really good body position. Is there anything else you wanted to speak to on this one?
No, I think you can go back to the slides.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what you said. I think you had a couple of things you wanted to add about like every different position, Al.
Yeah, you know, a second stair. So if you want to speak to this, and I'll bring up the video at the end and we can talk to the video.
Yeah, sure. Second stinger, your head is below the first stinger. You're looking across the formation. You want to, you're part of a round, so your body should be angled a little bit to help create that round. Both arms to your side. Your presenting arm should be close to the other second stingers, to the other second stinger of your pod, to make it super easy for the pod closer to just come in and pick up the grips. Pod closer, again, your head below the second stinger. We all want to be a little bit lower than the person in front of us. Both arm to the side. And you just basically come in and take the two grips that should be close to each other if the two second stingers are doing their job, and you just open up and try to get that pod really round, really strong.
All right, so this is Sarah's view from jump number 4, the 2016 record. There's a lot of good stuff here. Keep an eye on Cody over here, the way he launches himself off the aircraft. There's no waiting. Basically, the way everybody gets off this aircraft is really efficient. Boom, right into that two-way with the aircraft, right? So there's two things here we're going to want to show you guys. You're going to see a right side pod, the red pod, and then the left side pod trying to build, and you'll see the difference between the two. And that angle on the second stingers, which is really important to create that round and for the pod closer to come in and do their job a lot faster than having to chase. So if you look here, if I got the, yeah, I'm drawing good. You're going to see second stingers, right? How their hands are going to be very close to each other. Super easy here for the pod closer to pick up these grips and open it up to present for the next round of building behind. On the other hand, I'll show you the left side after. So right here, docking, both hands really close to each other. On the right side, again, focusing on the red pod, boom, it's built. On the left side, a little bit harder to do. If you look at the distance between the two second stingers, this distance is a little too big. This side here probably needs to move forward a little bit, and that's on the second stinger. They got to drive in. This hand and this hand need to be a lot closer for this pod closer to do their job efficiently and to finish that pod. So now what the pod closer has to do is grab one side, drive to the other, close the gap, and then try to get that pod ready for the people behind to sting. Really good job here by Mercedes, just waiting, you know, on level, waiting for this pod to close. You're not allowed to touch until it's closed. And then as soon as it's closed, you'll also, I think it's Jess from Vancouver comes in a little over aggressive. We'll talk about that in a second. But as soon as it closes, boom, right on it. But just a little bit hard, right? Rather, I would have liked to have seen here is stay on level, wait for it to open up just a little bit, and do your job just as quickly and be able to present. And boom. You guys have to remember that everybody here is chomping on the bit, right? They're trying to dock as quickly as possible. That's their job. In fact, if you don't do that, you'll probably get cut. So you're on level, you're super close, you're waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting. As soon as your grip is available, boom, you grab it. That's your job. If you are docking without being on level, we just talked about the phantom dock, without having your arms properly set out, your legs sorted out on level, so that as soon as you touch, you're ready to be docked on. If you haven't taken care of all those things, you're going to be working a lot harder to try to get back on level if you weren't when you first docked, because someone's grabbing you as soon as you've docked. Cool. All right. What's next here? Levels. Mike, I think that's you.
That's me. Al, we're about an hour in here. Do we want to give everyone a 2-minute bio break or just power through this part here?
What say you people? I'm easy. You see any? I don't see the crowd or the masses. So thumbs up, everybody who wants to keep going. Thumbs down if you want to break.
Lots of thumbs up.
I
Yeah.
don't even think there's
We'll
a
say the
thumbs down
partial.
option. No negativity allowed in Zoom calls.
Let's plow through it, guys. If you need a break, just step off and come back. Again, this is being recorded, so.
All right, sounds good. I wish I didn't have that 5th coffee now. All right, so levels. We haven't talked about this yet, but yeah, it's part of every single part of the dive, right? So I mean, we talk about it when we leave the plane. We talk about when we approach the formation, and once we get on there, it doesn't end. A good visual for those levels for anyone who's been in a big valley formation, you tend to have the base and then that stadium view as you go outside, kind of building up. Now, because we're upside down, that whole thing's flipped upside down. So you've got your base and then the outside stingers creating that sort of upside down umbrella. So from your point of view, exactly like Al's got here, let's see if I can annotate here. You want to really see that kind of curved line going from the outside, making its way down to the base. Sorry about that. So you can move on to the next slide there, Al. It says, do not exaggerate. So levels, it means being in that sweet spot. It's not necessarily always higher or faster is better. So if you're too low on the formation and you're really reaching down for that grip, you're going to end up kind of with your chest on the back of the person you're docking on, and you can start to create some kind of burbles there, and it creates more issues behind you as well. So there is sort of a sweet spot, but sort of like JC talked about, it should be about a head level. If you can see if you're looking at the back of the rig of the person in front of you, or even the back of their head, you're probably not on level. You need to be kind of reaching down with your grip, and you should see the top of their helmet. If they have a GoPro, you should be able to see kind of the top of that GoPro ideally. And that really gives you that visual across the formation and gives you a heads up of kind of what's coming. When you're driving your car down the highway, if you're just tailgating someone in front of you and looking at the back of their car, you're probably not in a very good position to react quickly. Whereas if you got a little bit of a distance and a better view, so by backing off of a car or on a free fly, you're going a little faster to see over that person. You can kind of predict what's going to happen when you see those waves coming in the formation ahead of you. Your mind already knows what's going to happen, and you can kind of adjust. Whereas if you're just staring at the back of someone's head, you're at the mercy of whatever comes to you as it happens. So having that visual creates a lot of advantages for you as well. Levels and speed are governed by your lower body. So once you're locked in there, you've got one dock and another hand presenting. You don't have really much you can do with your arms. So the legs are going to be super important for those speed checks and those level adjustments. Go to the next slide there, Al. So every pod is a base. Super, super important. I know when we do a lot of our drills and practice jumps, there's some people that are happy to get into the base. A lot of people want to practice that dive, getting in docking. But especially on a Bigway, it's actually super advantageous if you get on some bases and practice being in a base, because once you build that pod, you're basically a base. And a lot of people, work on diving or floating, getting the formation, taking a dock for 2 or 3 seconds, and then that's the end of the skydive. There's a much higher chance on these Bigways, especially towards the record, that you're going to be flying that formation for some time, maybe 5, 10, 20 seconds. And you really want to be comfortable with base flying. So take some opportunities to get in the base if you have them, and see what it feels like to take some hits from behind to be able to adjust for that pressure, because that's what you're going to be doing on a lot of these skydives. Really good examples here where not having a strong kind of base mentality can lead to this type of formation. You see things really stretching out here. This is a bad position to be in. And yeah, Al, excellent example there. I mean, they're flying that base better than the base almost, right? That's the mentality you need to have. And everyone's really working here to push out, keep this formation nice and round. That's everyone's job here. The closer is really going to have the hardest job, kind of helping to steer this and keep it straight. So whoever's in this position here needs to really push those arms out, open it up, and they should be kind of creating that straight line down to the center. Anything you want to add to that visual there, Al?
No, thanks. You did a good job. Basically, if things are round, things are strong, they're not going to get waves. Waves are going to kill you on a big wave formation. So if everything gets too stretched out, levels get very difficult to do. Leg burbles happen way too much. And then you're throwing people off your pod, or people are just getting thrown off because of leg burbles. So yeah. Cool.
Okay, let's go to the next slide there.
How do I get rid of the annotate, by the way?
I can clear it there. There we go. So legs. Yeah, 100%. You know, once we're docked on that formation, that's all you've got to work with, really. And this is where a lot of people get bit, I think, especially if you've spent a lot of time practicing in the tunnel. You've probably learned, and we'll get into this later on, but you probably learned one way or another to fly. And that's probably either Daffy or Shelf. But having a full toolbox, different options, and being able to really use your legs to their full potential is going to make all the world of difference here. So, you know, once docked, lock it in. So you want those legs to get in position and be strong. You'll hear a lot on the critiques in all the different records, you know, noisy legs. If your legs are kicking around like this, even though you may be flying great, it means you're not really locked in. You're not actively flying. You're letting the wind fly you. That's a perfect example there. I'm glad you used me for the good example, not the bad this time. So engaging your feet, you know, pointing your toes one way or the other, just something to mentally think about locking those legs in so they're not moving around is really going to make a big difference. And two great examples there. Yeah.
Yeah. If I can add to that, I mean, you want to have air from knees to feet, not from hips to knees, right? So it's more of a stand-up position to keep your fall rate. And again, activating your feet is the key to everything. Things happen so quickly in a Bigway. And I think, Mike, you're going to get to that when we go and talk about the differences between Daffy and Shelf. That's the next slide. If you're not already strong, engaged feet in the air and ready to adapt or react to something, by the time you need to do it, it'll be too late. So a lot of people sometimes with their front leg, the foot is just downwards and it ends up hunting. It's constantly looking for a heading. If you activate that foot, get a little bit of side to it, it stays so strong, it's ready to fight off any kind of negativity behind or around you.
Another aspect that plays into the levels really is choosing the right gear, and kind of knowing what your limitations are. These Bigways tend to fly much faster than most jumps you've probably been on, if you're not flying a lot of Bigways. And you don't want to be caught in either position where you're constantly flying totally straight leg just to stay with the formation, or you're having to dig in because your suit's a little too fast, or maybe you're wearing too much weight. You don't want to be digging in too much either, creating a bigger stance and taking out more air, getting into more burbles. So there is kind of a sweet spot, and that's where these record camps are going to help you kind of dial that in, and you know, use those debriefs to look at your own body position, even if the coaches aren't commenting. Like, how are my legs? Am I totally pinned out all the time, just trying to stay with the formation? You know, if so, maybe I need to wear a little bit of weight or wear a tighter suit or something like that. So, you know, where legs are important, you also want to make sure you have some range either way, and having the right gear is going to help with that as well. I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, constant levels and speed checks. I think we'll see that in some of the videos later on as well. But you know, to JC and Al's point earlier, you know, you really never get to stop flying. Once you're on the formation, you know, you may want to take a breath and think, oh, good, I made it. And that's actually where the fun begins. That's where things can get a little more chaotic. And you're constantly flying, adjusting, up, down, up, down. It's rare that you can just kind of lock one position in. And you need to be always looking across the formation, ready to kind of absorb those waves and those movements and changes in speed. And that's where those cross partner references really come in. If you're looking the other way at your own pod, you're going to get blindsided by that formation as it starts to move. You need to be seeing that whole picture and really looking across the formation to see everything that's going on. This is from the rolled vertical record. And a lot of these photos are from Sebastian Plord, so credit to him. Your check's in the mail, buddy. I took your photos because they had me in them. Mine didn't. So, but yeah, awesome example here where, for whatever reason, either people got here quick or the whole formation isn't building quite as quick as it could be, but really good discipline here. You've got the majority of your flyers here really building the stack formation we're looking for. Let me draw a bit of a line here. So you can see from the center of the formation, this just goes up, 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 right? And that's kind of what we're looking for there. everybody here is just creeping on the person in front of them, so that once that builds in front of them, they're ready to build. They're not waiting too far out. And just like some really nice lines here. Again, if you can see this person, you can probably see their cross partner across the formation, and they can definitely see the center of the formation. If you're down here in this area and you can see the back of this person's rig in front of you, you don't really know what's going on in front of you. So you want to be able to see over everyone's head. And that's what that visual should look like. It's actually pretty uncomfortable, I found, when I first started flying bigways. I felt like I was below the formation, and that's how you should feel. It's a bit of an awkward thing at first, but it takes a lot of practice to kind of get comfortable with it. So yeah, that's a
We
good
didn't see you
example.
highlight that person with the levels, so I'll do it for you. I think you were talking about this person here, right?
Yeah.
That's a little bit off level.
Off level, yeah. They're going to see probably the back or bottom of this person here. They don't really have a good picture of what's going on in front of them, and they're going to have to adjust and get above them anyways once they get in there. So yeah, great examples over here. Yeah,
that guy is.
Yeah, and then this is Seb's view, so you can tell for him as well. He can see above. He's coming in at good levels here as he's approaching.
Cool. I'll have to get you to erase all that. Thank you. All right, Shelf versus Daffy.
Awesome. Yeah. So this one killed me when I first started flying bigways. I was 100% learned Bigway in the shelf all the way. 100% learned shelf. I was flying 4-way VFS before I could even dock on a 20-way formation in the sky, and 100% learned Daffy. And I learned really quickly when I wanted to get into bigways that Daffy is good for getting to the formation, especially if that's what you're comfortable with. You got your legs behind you; it's a good way to drive forward. But once you're in the formation, it can bite you really quick. The problem is, for VFS, it's great. Your legs are behind you. That allows you to have your arms right in front, which is what you want for VFS for taking grips. But in a formation, you need to have your arms spread out typically. And that shelf position isn't very forgiving if you take any kind of bumps behind you or in front. So learning that Daffy position is super critical. This season, I want to say I hope the tunnel is open, but it's not looking awesome. I don't think anytime soon, maybe. But take as many advantages as you can to work on these different skills in the sky. If you guys can get out to the camps, do it, or just practicing with your friends. But if there's something you identify yourself as being weak at, I'm sure all of us have something. And maybe that's, I'm comfortable flying shelf this way or Daffy this way, but not this way. Work on that other way, because when it comes down to it, if you're getting a slot on a record or on a camp jump, you don't want to have to say, I can't fly with a left-hand grip or right-hand grip because I can only fly Daffy one way or the other. You want to be comfortable. Once I will be stronger, but you want to be comfortable flying both of those positions. Do you want to comment there, Al?
No, it's just, I love what you're saying. It's fantastic. You can't be a one-trick pony. So you have to be able to take docks on either side and to fly if you can. If you can switch Daffy, even better.
The last world record was 2018. So that was the first record that I made. I was on the bench team the year before, and part of that was because I was only flying shelf, and I was really a tunnel flyer. I was pretty new to it. And one of the things that Brooke actually came out and said during the 2018 record, we had a ton, like I'd say at least 30%, 40% probably the flyers had probably just started skydiving in the last 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. Tunnel rats, thousands of hours probably. So awesome flyers in the tunnel, but they were all flying shelf. And Rick just kind of threw down the book and said, this is kind of right in the middle of the camp. And he was like, starting right now, no more, I don't want to see a single shelf flyer. Once you're on the formation, if you're flying shelf, you're cut. That's it. Because we had these amazing flyers that were getting in there in record time on the formation. And as soon as they took a tiny bump behind, they're corking out and out of the formation. So you really need to have that in your toolbox. You'll get through the camps and stuff just flying shelf, probably. But when it comes down to a record, you need to have that arsenal of other options. You need to be able to use your legs and put them wherever they have to be to find air. When that formation or pod behind you starts bumping into you, you need to be able to find air, and corking isn't really an option at that point. So huge, probably one of the most important things, I think, just being versatile with how you can fly with your legs.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Okay, breaking off and tracking. So as we all know, when we're planning a skydive, the first thing you should always plan is making sure people can safely open their parachutes. That's goal number one, that's safety. Nothing trumps that. So how do we get there? We have break-off altitudes. We design those, and we speak to those in the dirt dive. You must have ditters. You must adhere to those planned break-off altitudes. The turn from the formation into your lane isn't always a 180, and we practice that in the dirt dive as well. Something you need to practice before you come to the camps, though, is making sure you can stay on level, make your turn, stay on level as you drive forward, and then after creating horizontal separation from the people who are still doing 170-ish miles an hour, then and only then can you make that transition into a backtrack and then flip after clearing your airspace and getting into a belly track. Super important. Some key mistakes people make. Clearly, you can't make the corking mistake in front of the formation, so you got to be cork proof before you show up to the camp. And by all means, please contact your local coaches, practice this, do some one-on-ones, find anyone who can help you with this to make sure that you are signed off before you come to the Vertical North Camp. Once you can do that, we're more than happy to bring you aboard. We'll start you small, we'll put you in a small group, but we need to make sure that you are safe at breaking off. I'll give you an example here of what could be considered as dangerous. As people are still vertical, doing vertical fall rate, you have someone here who's already transitioned to their back. Super dangerous. I don't need to over-explain that. I think it speaks for itself, but it's something you don't want to do. So practicing before you do the camp is critical, please. How do you do it? The way I explain it to people often is just imagine that you're doing a 180 turn. You don't drop your grips because that increases your fall rate. You just drop grips, turn around. Imagine your coach 30 feet away from you, head down, waiting for you to come in for a dock. And you've done this a bunch of times before you come to the camp. You drive right past that. After you've driven right past that imaginary point, you start transitioning to your back. Very important, once you're on your backtrack, that you stay in your lane. If you're not staying in your lane, you're making it dangerous for everybody around you. You got to stay in that lane. Sometimes in the bigger ways, and you're going to have that in the next record, there's going to be tracking groups. You follow your group. After a certain amount of time, we're going to tell you how long you're going to flower out and then finish your lane on your own. But when you do those transitions from back to belly, you got to stay in your lane. Don't stay on your back too long. Once you are in your own lane and you've cleared your airspace above you, you flip right away to the belly track and then clear below you and open at the predetermined altitude of opening that we're going to tell you in the dirt dive as well. I've seen people stay on their backs too long. It's very dangerous because there's people underneath you depending on which wave that you've broken off with, and you could literally be going into parachutes. So you don't want to be doing that. Always wave off before you deploy. That's a no-brainer, but in Bigways, more than ever, more important than ever. Deploy at predetermined altitude. Again, you're going to be told when that has to happen, and unless there's an emergency, this is what you should do. If someone is flying below you, they're in your line and you guys can't communicate properly, typically what happens is if you've already gone to your belly, that means you've cleared above. If you've cleared above, you can deploy. Don't put your buddy in the basement. After you deploy, your number one job, keep your lane, stay on your heading. This idea that as soon as your parachute's open, you can turn back towards the DZ in Bigways, you cannot do that. And also getting into all the stuff you do, if you remove your slider, if you whatever, you're doing none of that for a while until you can count the parachutes around you from your tracking partners. You should know exactly how many people, again, from the dirt dive, how many people are going to be partnering around you in the sky, count those parachutes, do your housekeeping, turn back to the DZ, and again, you know, head on a swivel, looking around constantly to make sure that you are following your pack in, you are coming in the wave that you broke off with. So typically you're going to have the high wave staying on deep breaks and middle wave staying in between. And if you're in the base and first stingers, then you're going to try to be efficient to come and land, but you're not going to do that by spiraling. You're going to make things very predictable. You're going to follow the pattern. There's going to be no deep breaks that we do before we want to swoop a pond and then letting go in order to have a big dive. No, this is not a swooping competition. We want you to be super predictable as you're flying your parachutes. And for those of you who like clean areas for landing, follow me. Typically what I like to do is go and land away from where everybody can see you landing, which is where there's typically a lot less parachutes, and land safely. Once you've landed, all the usual stuff, keep your head facing the direction of other parachutes coming in. And as you're walking back, typically you walk either to the side of the landing area or at the center where you might have flags or what have you. Again, keep an eye on everybody coming in. If you're on the next record, you're going to be surrounded by 70+ people. You want to make sure that everybody can land safely and you're not getting in the way. JC, I believe.
Yes. All right. So once you're done with your jump, the next thing would be to go to the debrief. Just like for the dirt dive, you want to be on time because it's efficient and because it's respectful. So if you need more time, if you want to take some break, get a packer if you need to. Once you're in the debriefing, as you guys know, jumps, they don't always go as planned, but we still want to keep that as positive as possible. You want to listen, you want to be open to learning. Just like I said earlier, you want to ask questions and you want to try to be part of the discussion. As much as possible, try to ask questions in front of everyone because the answer is probably going to be beneficial for a lot of people. If you'd rather do that in private, just come see one of the organizer afterwards and ask your question. If you need a little more explanation, a little more solo debriefing, that's fine as well. Once the debriefing is done, the main thing that you want to make sure before leaving the room is to know what's up next. If we're on a weather hold, you want to know that. If we're on a call, you want to know that. If the dirt dive is in 15 minutes, you want to know all of that. You don't want to just leave and go do your thing, go grab some food somewhere, and then the team's not going to be able to find you. That's pretty much it. I think the next slide is the report card that you guys get after the camp. I think Al, if you want to talk about it a little bit, you're a little more used to those, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, everything we just discussed in this presentation is represented here in your performance report. So our goal clearly isn't for you to just attend camps and then go away not knowing what you need to do for the next camp or in order to be selected for the record. We're going to give you a scorecard. We're going to talk about all these. I'm sorry, it looks a little bit small right now, but it gives you an idea of what it is. And it's basically everything we just discussed, right? Dirt dive, aircraft, exit, approach, formation flying, break off, parachute, and debriefs. So we score you on these. If you've been to one of our camps, you will see a lot of comments identifying your strengths and some of the stuff you need to work on. And, by all means, go ahead and practice these things. Typically, we are well connected with our extended group of coaches that are there's a high probability you have some of these coaches on your drop zone that you can work on stuff and they'll report back to us before you come back to the next camp. Give you an idea, we did go over time a little bit. I hope that you're enjoying this so far. If you have questions, this is really the time for it. I'm going to get into it and give you guys an idea of what kind of information you could be getting from these scorecards along with the score, but also us highlighting some of the stuff you may or may not have done in the camp that could be improved. Michelle, can you tell me if you can see this right now, this picture?
You're good, but if
Okay.
I would maybe full screen it at the bottom right-hand corner.
Yes, thank you. Not much of a difference. Okay, so this is an example of how leg burbles happen. Typically, if you're a first stinger, we want you to do a side dock, right? So that your legs are in their own lane and you're not stuck underneath the grip. You got to remember the air is coming from above the grip here, the relative wind. And so if you want your front leg to be effective, you need to be pivoted. Otherwise, it ends up a little bit loose, and burbles, the way they happen is they suck you in. If someone starts taking your air, with their leg, they're going to draw you in, and you got to fight that off and find a way to not let that happen. So this is exactly the kind of stuff that could happen with legs getting caught with each other. There's a close-up over here. This is an example of someone breaking into the base, where a more effective way to do so is to come in shelf, believe it or not. We don't do a lot of this in Bigways, except if we're building a base. So if you are going to be a base breaker, we recommend coming in a little bit more shelfy to open things up, get your legs out of the way, and then once you're in, get into that daffy and round it up. This is what burbles do. And this is how a lot of people get taken out of a formation. Don't victim out. Chins. You'll see here, someone's chin is high on the left side, and that gives a false reference point. Right now, this person believes that they might be on level because according to their chin and what they see, it looks like they're on level, but they're not. They're actually shoulder high. So get those chins down, super important. It's one of the most common mistakes we've seen people do on Bigway formations at the beginning. There's another example of what it does. So I would say, we talk about working diameter of legs. Your working diameter in a Bigway should be smaller than what you do in the tunnel or what you do typically for fun in the sky. And again, this speaks to having a more stand-up position in the sky where you're getting more air from knee to foot rather than getting too big, right? So we want to have that more stand-up position, and that's why you got to really lock in those feet. Here we're highlighting, again, that working diameter. You'll see the legs super wide yeah, docked, but not on level. So more of a stand-up body position would put this person on level and with the right kind of fall rate. And this is the part where we really want to, if there are questions out there, by all means, please ask. Highlighting here, your really good feet on this person who's been working really hard on camps, by the way. The only thing is we want to see that one head level a little bit lower. I think I hear a question.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Did you have a question?
No, I was just discussing actually with Carolyn all of these topics.
Okay, no worries.
Hold on, we have a comment from Carter.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment on your the body position for the leg that's usually in the front. The thing is, we also got to remember that we can't just fly in a comfortable daffy position based on the arm that is sticking out with the leg that is sticking out in front of us. Because in one of the world records, Vince was having his foot sucked into the formation because he had I believe his right hand forward and his right leg forward, which meant that his own arm created a burble for his foot, and his foot was stuck in the center of the formation. So you may end up having to swap legs to arm position just so that you can maintain that clean airflow. It's just a comment I wanted to put out, because it does suck if you find yourself like, oh my God, where's my air? What am I doing? And then you kick your foot into someone else's air, and then you screw it all up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good point. I know exactly which it was on the 2012 record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically what I do when I'm designing a formation, I think those of you who have participated with us before in the past on camps and records, I will typically ask someone if they can switch daffy. If they cannot and they want to be a first stinger, then I'll make sure that that doesn't happen. I'll put them, if they fly right foot forward, I'll make them a left-hand first stinger. But ultimately now, if we are going to practice the fundamentals of first stinging, it shouldn't really matter as long as you are taking the sideward dock and your body is facing the pod, which means you have your entire lane for legs without interfering with anybody else. So if you're doing it right, it shouldn't matter. That doesn't mean I may not still slot you though in a position where you can't have that happen, but still, it's a really good point, because you're right. If your front leg is below the dock, you have no air. You might as well be flying shelf with 1 foot. So it's a good point. Thanks, Carter. Here we're highlighting how, yes, we want you to be safe, but you got to be aggressive when you're in big ways. So when the time comes, we will tell you it's time to push it. It's time to be more aggressive. You're super safe. You've got the fundamentals. You're diving outside the formation. I want this person now. You see how big and wide they are? Their legs are out. Their arms are out. I only want to see that body position when you're closer to the levels, when you're getting ready for the red zone. But this is too far to open up. Again, big wide body position down here in a circle. You got to dive, dive, dive. You should be opening up maybe somewhere around where that line is so that you end up, on level a lot faster. You got to give yourself as much in formation red zone time to work as possible. So finding ways to be more efficient to get in there is very important. That comes with practice. This is highlighting exits, right? Making sure that you are getting in to a head down body position, flying position into the relative wind as quickly as possible. Right now, this person is presenting their belly to the relative wind. That pushes them off. It takes them longer now to that creates horizontal separation, and it takes longer for them to actually get back into their dive. So it's super important what we were saying earlier on launching from a side door aircraft, that you launch from inside the door and then stay small until you have that opportunity to get your head and open up into the relative wind. Otherwise, you will delay your opportunity to get into the formation, and you're minimizing your working time when you get there. These are gaps that you'll see in diving. There's a big gap there between the first group and the second group. We don't want to see that. That can't happen when you're trying to build a record. Again, we have a finite amount of time in order for us to build these formations. We can't go higher than 18,000 feet typically. So you have X number of seconds, and each wave has to build in a certain amount of seconds. If your wave is not building in those seconds, then you're delaying the wave behind you. Again, highlighting gaps. You'll see the person. There are two different kinds of body presentations here to the air. One of them is parallel to the aircraft, and this person is in the right body position. Whereas the other one, again, more horizontal, more belly to the air. These are the kind of things you need to sort out and practice in camp so that when a record comes, you're being a lot more efficient. Presentation's important. We ask you to make a fist as you present behind you. There's two reasons for that. By making the fist, you're consciously making a decision that I'm not flying with this anymore. It's a good reminder. And it also stops all the jousting that could happen. If your hand is open, it will typically move around. Make that fist, present your wrist. We don't want people to do docks on fingers. We want a dock on the wrist. So give the fist and they'll grab the wrist. Talking about the base, where you are potentially getting air and you're driving forward, it makes you very prone to any kind of activity behind you. And that activity now becomes a lot less, it doesn't need to be as much activity to deviate you and to take you out. So being vertical is very important. This person's first stinger comes in behind. There's already leg burble because they're leaning forward. Their legs are behind them too far. First stinger is having a hard time getting in. If you look at the presentation here, it's making a V inside the base instead of outside, making it round. And it didn't take much for this person now to have leg burbles. Legs got taken out. It didn't take much. They were gone. Went right through the base. Chin up after a dive or a float will give you a false reference point. So this person here, their chin is up. They think they're on level, but they're not. And they're also focusing too much on the dock. One of the things you'll learn in the camps is you don't look at your dock. You're looking across the formation, you're looking above. When I'm driving my car, I don't need to move my head towards the rear view mirror and look into it for me to see behind. My head stays straight. I can see in front of me and I can see peripherally where that rear view is and if there's a car behind me. We don't want people to be focused on grips. We want them to be able to grab grips without staring at them.
Al, we have two questions.
Yes.
First one is from Julian. When diving out of a twin otter, is it useful to pull yourself with the side of the door?
If you are close to the door, yes. As you saw earlier, we saw Cody. He had his hand on the door frame, and sure enough, boom, he hauled himself out of the aircraft. That's fine. When you're shuffling and you're running out of that aircraft, I would say that it could potentially be something that could slow you down. It could also become something that interferes with people around you. So creating that kind of a dependency, when I think it should be better for you to eliminate potential hazards by just focusing on your feet. Get out there. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, I'll add to that. On the last world record, my slot in the door put me in a position where I was exactly arm's length reach from the door, and I like to use the frame to pull myself out. You got to remember too, there's two exit spots in that door. There's the back and the front. So if you're creating an obstruction for someone else by putting your arm there, you want to avoid doing that. In that particular case, I just happened to be in the perfect spot to grab it. But to your point, if you're in the back of the plane and running out, it's probably faster just to go out the door than to try and grab it as you're going. Unless you're in that launch position and it's advantageous right from the get-go. There's not too many cases, I think, where you'd want to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Another question, Michelle?
Yes, from Vinicius. What advice would you give to a skydiver not yet proficient in head down this year if the tunnel doesn't open?
It's a really good question. Our advice would be to work with your coach or coaches at your local drop zone and move around. There's a really good chance we know who your coach is, and have them communicate with us at which level you are and let us determine to see if you can participate or not. There is a fine line, and we're happy to balance that line. We won't sacrifice safety. So the one thing everybody can know, that if you're participating in our camps, it will be safe. That's guaranteed. We don't hum and haw around that. From a skills perspective, though, there are ways for us to allow people to graduate from small groups to medium-sized groups to larger groups. So work with your local coaches, have them give us an assessment on where you're at, and then give us an opportunity to make that call with you. Our goal is to have you. We want to augment our numbers, and we've done a lot of this in the past. We have taken people with just a couple hundred jumps, a lot more tunnel maybe, but less sky experience, yada, yada, all that stuff. And we found ways to get them on a record successfully and to move on even to bigger and better stuff too. So it's not impossible to do, but work with your coach, work with us. We'll assess the situation on a case-by-case basis and tell you what you should be working on with your coach. And then once we feel you're safe enough to get into some of the camp stuff, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I've already seen a crazy amount of kind of mini camps planned throughout the season. I mean, we have our Vertical North camps 100%, but in between almost every single weekend, there's somebody coaching or organizing at, whether it be Burnaby or SDO or STI or drop zones out closer to Montreal and Quebec. I think there's something almost every weekend. So yeah, to your point, reach out to our team if you want some particular advice on what to work on. And there's definitely a lot of coaching going on this season, it looks like.
Yeah, and even out west, I know Cody's out there doing all kinds of events constantly. So is Veronica, who's part of the P19 project. We are in contact with Jess. I think, Mike, you were talking to Jess. I can't remember. But, we will highlight whatever's happening out west as well. It's hard for us to get out there. It's expensive too. And with COVID, well, it is what it is right now. But if and when things start popping up out west as well, we'll be more than happy to announce those on the Vertical North. Were there other questions, Michelle?
Nope, you're good to keep going.
Okay. So again, another Bigway scene here. I can't remember exactly why we put that one there, Mike, but I do know there's a lot of good and stuff to learn from in here. Did you want to speak to this? Or JC?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a good example of kind of getting into that red zone and really showing where you need to fly your body. There's this is an example on the last world record where this particular pod, I think someone got ejected, so it wasn't building in front of them, but the actual video is really really good for this this scene. But essentially, this whole line of pods, they're just flying with ghost grips, no grips taken. And in the actual video, you'll see the whole formation going like this. And all these guys are just sticking with it, and that's really how you have to fly these formations. You're not relying on that grip. You're flying as if you have no grips, and once you take that grip, it needs to be the exact same thing. That person doesn't even know you're on them. So it was just a good example of how tight everyone's flying. They're ready. The second that person in front of them builds, they're just reaching out a foot or two to grab that next dock. They're not a mile apart waiting. So I just thought it was a good example of a tight formation, even though things hadn't built in front of them yet. So they're ready to go on these records. If you're lucky, especially if you're on the outside, your window of opportunity might be like 3 to 5 seconds. If things build well, you've got, okay, the person in front of you docks, you got 1, 2, 3, and now you're tracking off. So you don't have time to close that gap. And this is just, everyone's just ready, eager to go. I thought it was a good example.
Awesome. Yeah. This was us highlighting at one of our camps in 2019, how once you are in the red zone, it's extremely important to be on level. Otherwise, like right now, it's not so bad for this individual who's a little bit too high this deep into the formation, because there's not a lot of people on this practice training jump. But if there were, there would be only one way to get into their slot, and that's to go down the cone, which is extremely sketch. So, you know, unless you're highly experienced and someone burbled you out, we never want to see this.
We have another question.
Yes, please.
From Nico, do you have a top 10 Bigway video to get good visuals?
Challenge accepted. No, I don't have a top 10 Bigway video compilation. However, if you are unsuccessful in your Google searches, I would, by all means, ping me. More than happy to share with you some of the ones I watch regularly, actually, and study typically, and that I have in my back pocket anytime. But a compilation of top 10, I don't.
Yeah. Maybe that's something we can take back after this meeting too. I know we talked about even posting this recording online on YouTube on a channel. So maybe maybe we start creating a playlist just for the team to have some stuff to reference. Even for myself, I had to go digging through videos. You know, we all have millions of hours of video, but yeah, I think it's a good suggestion, Nico.
Awesome. Awesome. Super. Was there another one, Michelle?
Nope, good to keep going.
Okay. So here highlighting again, you know, you got to enter the red zone on level. If you're too close to the formation to be that high, if there were a person, so I drew a little stick man there, showing just how sketch it would be for that individual to get into their slot if there were people out there waiting for them to get in, right? I'd rather see someone on level shoot, and I don't have the video available real quick, but I've seen it before. Mr. Cody Moffat, who's pretty badass, coming in on one of our jumps where he basically zigzags around people on level to get to his slot, because his plane, that entire plane, was too far away. The pilot did a pretty cheap job at that jump run. But I'd rather see people on level zigzagging through the traffic to get into their slot than to dive sketchily in between people. Again, you know, you're that close, get on level. If you are open, your legs are out, your arms are out, and you're that off level, you need to get back on level and then reopen. Again, showing here where, if you were on level, where your sight vision would be and your ability to be docking. I apologize for my art, but the picture still helps. Focused on the dock. Again, this is someone staring at the dock and forgetting that they're not on level by doing that. Stop staring at your docks. You don't need to stare at it. You know where it is. When we shake hands with people, we'll look at each other in our eyes. Well, we haven't done that in over 1.5 years, but when I shake someone's hand, I know where their hand is. I can shake their hand without looking at it. I look at them in their eyes. Cool. So this was, again, just some examples of how we provide feedback when you come to our camps. I think that concludes everything that we had to present today. This is Q&A. We'd like to open the floor for some more dialogue. We've kept you guys quite a bit of time here, almost 2 hours. We apologize for the length. We could probably go even longer. This is, again, it takes a mountain of details to master Bigways, and it doesn't matter novice or experience. These details have to be, they have to be known, they have to be practiced, and you have to be current at you know, being Bigway proficient. So opening the floor.
I have a question from Neil. For people who missed or people who want to watch this recording, where can they find it?
Yes, it'll be posted on the CSPA YouTube channel, and CSPA and Vertical North will advertise and promote that on social media when the link is up. Cool. I think maybe people are asleep.
Carter, if you want to unmute, go ahead.
Oh, actually, Mitch was writing the question for me, but I'll speak it out loud for everyone. Canadian record next year, clashing with the world record.
Yes.
Any comments on that?
Can I drop an F-bomb?
I think, yeah, I think we all understand.
Well, you know, listen, our dates, you know, so it was my understanding all along, and I do communicate with Roop quite a bit. It was my understanding that the recipe was once again going to be what it used to be, which was a week after Summerfest, which would be world records somewhere in the 1st to 2nd week of August. So that announcement last week caught me off guard a little bit, to be honest. I haven't had a chance to speak to Rook about it, but it sounds like the recipe has changed to a week or two before Summerfest instead for the world record. So, you know, we'll course correct accordingly. We definitely can't do it at the same time. There are way too many strong Canadians planning to go to the world record, and we need our Canadians home to do the Canadian record as well. So maybe we'll make sure that that world record happens. Let's send a really strong Canadian contingent that always does super well at the world record, so that that record happens faster than usual and they don't blow their bank, and they come back and do a record here in Canada. I don't know, buddy. I haven't got an answer for that yet, but we're very aware of it, and you know, we'll course correct.
Cool.
Go ahead, Carter.
Well, I was just going to say thanks for that. Maybe we can talk about it, Al. I had some ideas. Mitch and I were just actually not Mitch and I. Kelly and I were just talking about some of that, and maybe brainstorming some ideas as to when we can actually do it, either before or after, kind of using like for those who may end up being on the world record to come back and just be like a much more solid foundation for the Canadian record for those who aren't able to get on the world record as like a means of, but like, we can talk more about that.
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Josh, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I had to unmute. When roughly, I don't know if I missed it, but I don't think I heard it. When roughly are we planning the Canadian record out? Like what kind of hemisphere of the summer?
Well, again, our plan was to do it before the world record next year.
Okay, yeah.
So the week before Summerfest, so that people can still go to Summerfest and then do the world record. Again, we don't know now. So we're going to hit the books and plan things up, start whiteboarding opportunities, and get back to you guys.
Okay. And what is it harder to do it after the world record as well? Like August time frame, like late August?
It's not that it's harder. You know, it's just one of the things for us to take into consideration is we want our experienced people to participate in the Canadian record. And it's expensive. You've got 2 major records happening the same year. So, you know, again, strategy around all that is going to be considered, and factors, and we'll figure it out. We'll find a way to maybe separate the two. The thing is if we move it too early in our own season, because our seasons are so small and so short, if we go too early, then we might not be current and trained and you know, on it as well as we could have been if we kind of had the opportunity to have more camps beforehand.
True.
We do,
Yeah,
you know, our goal here is to increase our numbers. You know, we want people who, you know, there was hopefully a 2-season runway for newcomers to attend camps and get good and get selected and be on the record to augment our numbers. If we go too early in 22, we might be losing that opportunity, right? So we can't do that either. So.
True. Have you thought of, I mean, obviously the date is going to have to be decided by somebody based on all of the variables, but have you thought of maybe taking like a poll from everyone as well, just to see when they're available, just as a general, you know, another source of information, basically?
Yeah, I mean, we think of these things all the time, and we've tried them in the past, not so successfully. You know, maybe, I don't know. It's not a bad idea. It's just, I'm not sure we end up reaching everyone when we try these polls on social media. If there's another way of doing it, then, you know, I don't know, but.
Yeah, it's just more data, I guess, to help make this. Cool.
No, you're right. And, you know, who knows, maybe another couple of polls would be the right way to go. But again, in my experience, what I've seen so far is a poll might hit 50% of the population out there you're looking to hear from, not all of them, unless people, you know, really talk to their buddies, talk to their friends, make sure everybody answers.
Yeah, could be maybe the latter, but cool. Thanks.
Cool.
Julian, the floor is yours.
I was just wondering if you know the DZ that will have the record. No, not yet.
Not yet. We are in communication with more than one DZ, and we're trying. This is another, you know, evaluation that we need to complete, and we're in the process. So there's still a bit of time. We want to make sure that that we build the foundation for these events to happen as best as possible with the right people.
Julian also asked, are we leaning more toward Toronto or Montreal? Do you have any thoughts on that yet, or?
I can't, unfortunately, I can't divulge all of the information right now. But let's just say that we are considering every factor possible to make sure we provide the best opportunity for the best event for all of you.
Next question, Jen, you're up.
Yeah, just regarding the team up portion of this belly and wingsuit, what's going on with that? I haven't heard anything from the organizers of those.
Yeah, a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So as you all know, we made some announcements. You know, it's hard for us to get 4 aircraft on site, big aircraft, to build a record. So it's expensive, and we're trying to make sure that costs to the flyers are somewhat reasonable. So we did team up with Belly and Wingsuit communities. They will be participating in a minimum of 3-way aircraft, so 3 plane formation loads. The captains and I have had a couple of meetings already. They're planning what it is they're going to offer as a product for Wingsuit and for Belly, either sequential, what is the audience they're targeting, intermediate to advanced, and you should be hearing from them, I would say, by the time this season, this year begins, as to what the recipe would be for them to offer you as a product next year. So along those lines, and if there are more questions, let me know, Michelle. The cool thing is that we have a lot of sponsorship trying to help us, despite the financial status of things these days, after what we've been living through in the past year and a half. The cool thing that I would like to highlight is that our 3 major suit manufacturers in Canada, who are also probably some of the best suit manufacturers around the world, have joined us, just like the Belly and the wingsuit communities have. Vertical Suits, Ouragan Suits, and Franquet Suits are teaming up for the first time ever to support our event next year. There will be some raffles for jumpsuits, and they will be doing whatever they can to help us support us and to support the flyers. So I think it's pretty cool to see these three companies working as one when it comes to supporting the Team Up 22 hashtag for next year. Along that, I mean, we have as usual, as you can see here, SSK with Cypress and LMB. They've already dedicated some stuff for us to raffle off to you guys this year so we can raise funds. We're looking into what the methods and the means are going to be for us to have these raffles for people to buy tickets. And then once we solidify all that, we're going to be announcing it so that y'all can, you know, you and your friends can all buy some tickets and help us with the cost of aircraft for 2022. Jeff.
Hi, Al. I was wondering, since you were talking about the financial stuff, I'm sure that you are aware, since Michelle's on the call, that there's the long-term athlete development program where you can maybe try to organize something with or something.
Michelle, do you want to start with that one and then I can add?
Why don't you go, and then if I need to elaborate, I will.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about aircraft costs, CSPA does what they can to support the community. However, there's a finite amount of money and it's not a lot. So helping us with the cost of flying in aircraft from the United States is not something the CSPA can help us with directly with funds. From a training perspective, I think it is possible, and this is the part where I'm going to ask Michelle to call me a liar or not, but I think it's possible for us to apply for the cost of camp registration fees, maybe not all the camps, but maybe some of the camps, where potentially the CSPA can assist with that.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave it as, you know, I've been in touch with Al and the guys for a while now, and we are going to help in whatever way we can. I don't know what that will look like directly yet, but we're definitely going to work together and do what we can to support this.
Yeah, and just FYI to everybody, the CSPA always wants to try and help. It's mostly a volunteer organization, if I understand correctly. And Michelle has been a rock star. She's our champion. And I can't tell you everything we're doing right now that we're trying to prepare for, but I can tell you that she has spent quite a bit of time with us strategizing and not just planning for this session today and preparing and practicing and rehearsing, but also, you know, with a lot of the financial opportunities we may or may not have down the road to help minimize cost for the record next year.
Currently, no other questions in the chat.
I think it's time to let everybody go. It's 2 hours on the button. So
yeah, just one more thing I'll add in. I know there's a lot of kind of questions about the overlapping records and whatnot. And one thing I found when I was going to try and get on the world records was one of the critiques that really help, or prerequisites that really help, are having some record experience under your belt. So if you're looking to get on the world record for the first time, you know, taking part in these Canadian camps, getting some Bigway experience is usually the first thing they look for. And it's also going to have you in much better shape when that record comes. There's also a lot of costs associated with going down to some of those world record camps. So, you know, you'll have some opportunities to get that same level of practice through the local camps. And hopefully we can kind of mitigate those costs by doing things like that. I also know we're looking at maybe working with Rook to see if we can possibly do a world vertical record qualifier here. That I think is still TBD, but maybe there's some opportunities there, fingers crossed.
yeah, and you know, how do I say this? If you believe that you'll get that the quality of training and learning in Canada through the Vertical North would be any lesser or different than anywhere else, I can only tell you that that would be a false assumption. I think training at home and these camps that we do at the Vertical North are pretty spot on. We've had a few guest coaches in the past from people who also have a finger on the pulse on the training side of things for the world record, and we've heard nothing but good things. If you're not sure the level of quality we offer of skills training and learning, by all means, ask some of our graduates who've been on the world stage. You know who they are. Ask them how we're doing from a training perspective. You know, I would be shocked if they weren't happy with the path that they took by coming through the Vertical North camps and then moving on to even bigger and better stuff on the world stage. I'm pretty proud of the stuff that we do here. We spend a lot of time. We have spent and will continue to spend a lot of time dedicated to growing Bigways and free fly in Canada. Cool. Going to give you back some time. Apologize for the length once again, 2 hours. We didn't expect that. We thought it might be a little bit less, but we're really happy to have you all aboard. Again, tell your friends that those who missed it, it's going to be posted soon on YouTube and they can go ahead and have a look. Michelle, is there anything else we need to say or do before we wrap?
I think that's it. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend, and big thanks to the Vertical North team for coming out.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Thanks,
soon.
Al, JC, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.